Ethan Carter was the kind of man newspapers loved to write about, handsome, sharp, and the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in New York. But behind the tailored suits and million-dollar smile, Ethan carried a secret burden. He was a single father to a 5-year-old daughter, Lily, after losing his wife years ago. Tonight, however, Ethan wasn't attending a board meeting or a charity gala. He was reluctantly sitting at a cozy restaurant, waiting for a blind date his friend had convinced him to take. "You need to get out more," his friend had said. Ethan agreed, but his heart wasn't in it. His world revolved around Lily, not romance. But when the door opened, and a young woman in a simple dress stepped nervously inside, Ethan froze. She wasn't like the glamorous women he usually met. There was no expensive jewelry, no air of pretense, just gentle eyes, a shy smile, and a warmth that filled the room. Her name was Grace. She wasn't his intended blind date. She was only there working part-time, delivering orders while juggling night classes and caring for her sick mother. Yet somehow, their eyes met, and in that instant, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years, a spark of life, a sense of home. It wasn't love at second glance. It was love at first sight. Grace balanced the tray carefully, her hands trembling slightly. She wasn't used to restaurants like this, elegant chandeliers, soft piano music, and tables where the cheapest glass of wine cost more than her week's groceries. She worked here only 3 nights a week to keep the bills paid, praying her mother's medication wouldn't run out before her next paycheck. As she walked past Ethan's table, their eyes met again. For a moment, Grace felt seen, not as a poor girl in a borrowed dress, but as a woman. Ethan's steady gaze held no judgment, only curiosity and warmth. When his supposed blind date never showed, Ethan did something impulsive. "Excuse me," he called softly, stopping Grace mid-step. "Would you sit with me? Just for a moment?" Grace blinked, startled. I'm just working, sir." But something in his voice, a loneliness he couldn't quite hide, made her pause. Against every instinct, she sat down, setting the tray aside. They talked. Not about wealth, not about business, not about appearances. Ethan asked about her dreams, her studies, her mother. Grace asked about Lily, and Ethan's eyes softened in a way that revealed the heart behind the CEO mask. For the first time in years, Ethan laughed, really laughed. Grace's honesty disarmed him, her struggles humbled him, and her kindness touched a part of him success had never filled. When her shift ended, Ethan walked her to the door. The night was cold, and he noticed her thin sweater. Quietly, he draped his own jacket around her shoulders. Grace's eyes widened. No man had ever looked at her this way, like she mattered. And just like that, 2 worlds that should have never met began to intertwine. A week later, Ethan couldn't get Grace out of his mind. The boardroom felt colder, the city louder, but her smile lingered like sunlight breaking through clouds. Against his own rules, he called the restaurant. "The waitress, Grace." "Could you give her my number?" he asked. Grace hesitated when she received it. A CEO? Men like him didn't notice girls like her. Yet something about the sincerity in his eyes haunted her. After a long night caring for her mother, she finally sent a shy message. "Hello, this is Grace. I hope you're well." Ethan responded instantly. Within days, they met again, this time at a quiet park. But Ethan wasn't alone. Holding his hand was Lily, a little girl with curly hair and eyes full of wonder. "Grace, this is my daughter," Ethan introduced gently. Lily studied Grace for a long moment before tugging at her hand. "You're pretty," she whispered, and just like that, Grace's heart melted. She knelt, tying Lily's loose shoelace with practiced care, the way only someone who had lived in hardship and compassion could. Ethan watched in silence. No woman he had dated had ever shown such natural warmth toward Lily. Grace didn't treat her like an obligation, but like a child who mattered. The 3 of them spent the afternoon feeding ducks, laughing, and sharing ice cream. For the first time in years, Ethan saw Lily's joy reflected in someone else's presence. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Lily slipped her small hand into Grace's. "Can you come again?" she asked innocently. Grace's eyes met Ethan's. She hadn't planned on stepping into anyone's world, least of all his. But somehow, this felt right. The bond between Ethan, Grace, and little Lily grew stronger with every passing week. Grace never pretended to be someone she wasn't. She brought laughter to Ethan's polished world and tenderness to Lily's quiet heart. But Ethan began to notice things: her tired eyes, the way she sometimes skipped meals, the faint worry lines when her phone buzzed. One evening, after walking her home, he saw the truth. Her apartment was small, tucked into a crumbling building on the far side of the city. The lights flickered in the hallway, and Grace hesitated before opening the door. Inside, her mother lay in bed, pale and weak, medicine bottles stacked beside her. Grace flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see this," she whispered. Ethan's chest tightened. He had attended countless charity galas, written million-dollar checks, yet here was a woman fighting battles every single day with quiet courage, and she hadn't asked for anything. "Grace," he said softly, "you don't need to hide your life from me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I can't offer you anything, Ethan. Not wealth, not status. Just me." Ethan reached for her trembling hands. "That's all I've been searching for." That night he stayed, reading bedtime stories to Lily while Grace tended to her mother. For the first time, his world of glass towers and her world of cracked walls overlapped, not in pity, but in love. In Grace's small apartment, surrounded by struggle yet filled with warmth, Ethan realized something profound: money could build an empire, but kindness and courage built a home. And he wanted that home, with her. News traveled fast. A powerful CEO seen with a waitress? Whispers spread through Ethan's boardrooms, charity circles, and even the glossy magazines that followed his every move. Some called it a phase, others called it a scandal. One afternoon, Grace arrived at Ethan's office with lunch, only to overhear two executives sneering in the hallway. "She's nothing but a gold digger," one scoffed. "Wait until the press rips her apart," the other replied. Grace's cheeks burned. She wanted to turn back, to run from a world that clearly didn't want her. But then she saw Lily racing down the hall, arms wide, shouting, "Grace! You came!" And her heart steadied. Inside, Ethan noticed the flicker of pain in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked gently. Grace shook her head. "Ethan, maybe this isn't right. You deserve someone who fits your world, not someone people mock." Ethan's expression hardened. "Grace, I don't care what they say. You've given me more peace, more truth, than anyone in my circle ever has. My world doesn't define us, our hearts do." That evening, at a gala packed with cameras, Ethan held Grace's hand in plain view. He introduced her not as a waitress, but as the woman who had stolen his heart. Gasps filled the room, but he stood firm, his voice steady. "She is not my weakness," Ethan declared. "She is my strength." Grace's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she felt seen not as poor or small, but as loved. The world tested them, but love answered louder. Weeks turned into months, and though the world kept whispering, Grace and Ethan built something stronger than opinion: trust. Lily adored Grace, often asking, "Can she stay forever?" And Ethan's heart silently answered yes every time. One stormy night, Grace's mother fell critically ill. The medicine she needed was far too costly, and Grace broke down, confessing her fear to Ethan. "I can't lose her, she's all I have." Without hesitation, Ethan called the best doctors, covered the expenses, and stayed by Grace's side through every sleepless hour at the hospital. But when Grace tried to thank him, he shook his head. "This isn't charity, Grace. This is family. And family takes care of each other." Her mother slowly recovered, and one bright spring morning, she clasped Ethan's hand with tears in her eyes. "You've given my daughter something I never could, a future where she's cherished." Soon after, Ethan planned a quiet picnic in the park where they had first laughed together. Lily twirled in the grass, holding wildflowers, while Ethan turned to Grace. "Grace," he said softly, dropping to one knee. I don't want to live another day where you feel you don't belong. You belong here, with me, with Lily, with us. Will you marry me? Grace's hands flew to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. She looked at Lily's hopeful eyes, Ethan's steady love, and whispered the only answer her heart had ever known. Yes. As the sun broke through the clouds, Ethan kissed her hand, Lily clapped with joy, and Grace realized something profound. True love wasn't about status or wealth. It was about kindness, sacrifice, and hearts that chose each other, against all odds. And together, they chose forever.